What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be taking a look at Miles Morales, so let's see what we've got going on. Let's check it out. As promised, today we'll be taking a look at Miles Morales, so let's see what we've got going on. Continuing with the mini comic wave, we are on this retro style card back. You see the extra hands, you've got an extra head, there's your little mini comic there. Again, during the Decan review, I expressed my opinions about this. For me, the mini comic thing, it's not for me, but I won't belabor that. That's just where I'm going to leave it. What I do want to say, though, is like it leaves you a lot of space in this packaging, right? Like, it just feels a little empty with that there. I know they want to highlight it, but it is just something that does irk me just a little bit. But Miles looks good. I'm excited to get him out of the package, see what he looks like in hand. Flip it to the back. There's a look at the rest of your wave, so those videos will trickle out. A picture of your comic at the top. You've got Miles. Those are the rest of the issues that they'll be doing through this wave. Important information at the bottom. There's your blurb. In Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man #1, Miles must work to overcome the disappearance of his father and aftermath of the battle with Galactus. Flip it back to the front. We'll take a look at a card comparison. As a point of reference, you can see the cards are roughly the same height. So these modern card backs, they do kind of just go off the size of those actual retro-inspired cards. But let's get him out of the box. Fresh out of the box, we get a good look at Miles here. Now, he is on a different buck than the last few Miles figures that we've received are. The only other one that I kept in my display was the Gamerverse, so that's what I'll be comparing him against. But I'm curious to see how this articulation works out. There were a lot of questions, and I posted this on Reddit yesterday. There were a lot of questions I got about Miles and how the hips looked in person, in hand. So we'll certainly look at that. From afar, they kind of stick out a little bit, but I don't know if it'll be so egregious once you get them into certain poses. We've got 3 extra hands, so not 2 extra complete sets. I kind of get bothered when it's off like that. Maybe if I want 2 fists, now I can't do that, or even 2 wall crawlers, you don't have that option, right? So that seems like an odd choice. You do get the extra head, though, so a lot of people will be happy to have a masked and unmasked head. Let's take a closer look. Moving in closer, we can get a good look at the head sculpt, and I think it's done very well. There's a lot of great detail in there. The head does look a little big on the body, for me. Not everybody's going to agree with that, but I think it just kind of has this slightly larger presence than maybe it should. You do see all this articulation in here. Of course, I'll go over that. And then a closer look at the hips there. So you do see they stand out a little bit. They kind of just push out a little bit on each side, more than some people would probably like them to do. Now, you are on the drop down, so that does kind of play into that up there, but I'm sure there are ways to shave that off in the mold or even post mold. I don't know. Maybe that's going too far into the weeds, right? But it does seem to me that there is the possibility to kind of clean that up a little bit. You do see some pretty significant gapping in there. Of course, with the drop downs, you are going to have times when you see a lot of gap, right? Kind of gives you the point of the drop downs, but see, when you go back up, they really fill into the area there. So again, the pose is really going to be what determines how good or bad that really looks. I think you're going to be able to find ways to make it look good and not even notice or be bothered by that. But I did have significant questions about how those looked. So I did want to spend some time on that because I felt like it might be a big question within the collector community there. So that will give you a pretty decent rundown of how that looks. Again, a lot of it will come down to how you end up displaying Miles here. But there are some pretty bad angles. Taking a look at the masked head. Now this feels like it definitely works out better, looks more appropriate to size. I'm really trying to nail down what it is. Maybe the head just appears a little bit slimmer with the mask on. And like you always kind of assume that if you're wearing the mask, it's going to look a little bit bigger than if you're not wearing a mask, right? So I guess for me, that's really what it boils down to. Coming out of the box, the set of hands you'll have is a thwip and a wall crawler. And then you have the alternate thwip and an open hand. And then you have your lone fist. So that to me is where the weird choice is, right? So fist, fine, give me two fists. This open hand to hold the comic, right? That's the reason they put this damn hand in there. And I don't, I'm not going to use the comic in that way. We only get one wall crawler, right? So again, the other hand option could have been to have two wall crawlers, but there we are with those. Like I said, it does give him the option to hold the comic. Now, so far, I'm two figures into these, which have had odd choices for hands, right? And it all boils down to having a hand to hold that comic book. For your articulation, now this should be good. I do think that the articulation is going to be a highlight for this figure. Head will look down to there, chin firmly touching the chest. You can see there. Head will go back to there, so plenty of good upward arch. You get a little bit of rock in there, and then plenty of rotation around. Arms do work all the way around. You do have that butterfly in there, which seems to give you some decent forward and backward motion. So you can see there, plenty of movement back and forth. Upper bicep cut. You are double jointed at the elbow there. Nothing at your forearm, and then hinge at the wrist. So on such a small buck, like it's good to see that amount of movement packed in. Of course, you do get that dumbbell for the torso, so you get plenty of movement around. I mean, it can go any which way there. So it gives you plenty of deep movement back or forth. You do have the ab crunch as well, but then nothing at the hip. Drop down hips. So that does give you good amount of movement for your legs. Does give you some weird gaps and looks sometimes, but it's going to come down to the pose. Leg will kick up to there. I mean, that leg, that's good. You can get that leg up is about as far as you could want it to go. Leg will kick back to there. Upper thigh cut. Double jointed at the knee. Calf cut. And then hinge and swivel at the ankle. Of course, all pinless, so it looks nice and clean. So there is a lot of great articulation on this figure for what, Marvel Legends offers you. I think a lot of people will enjoy that. People are going to complain about that, though. For a size comparison, here he is backed up against the PS4 Gamerverse Miles Morales, and you can see that is a significant difference in height there. So a lot of people probably unhappy with how tall Miles was in the Gamerverse. Conversely, there might be people who are not happy with how small the mini comic wave Miles is. But I do think for the character, this is a good smaller build for Miles that will look good in a lot of displays. It's going to come down to personal preference with the height difference, but I do feel like this is a better representation of Miles Morales. And here he is backed up against your Renew Your Vows Spider-Man. Even more noticeable of a difference, right? Renew Your Vows is already kind of a bigger Spider-Man anyway, so this really does show sort of the larger difference between the two characters. And finally, here he is backed up against Kid Nova. So these two actually come in around the same height. This Miles is basically an upgraded body for your kid or early teen characters in Marvel, right? So I guess that's probably where people are gonna wish that Miles was just a little bit bigger, somewhere in between this and the Gamerverse version. But I do think that this is a significant upgrade for this size body. Now, I really do think you're going to be able to get this Miles into a lot of tight poses. I mean, you can see there, you can really kind of scrunch them up together between the legs into the chest. So that really does give you a lot of potential posing when you get into any kind of really dynamic pose. So people will be happy about that, I do think. So just something to think about there. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. There is your Marvel Legends mini comic wave Miles Morales, or Ultimate Miles Morales, I should say. Overall, I think there's a lot to like about this figure. I did point out a lot of things to not like about this figure, but when I'm looking at it, how it's going to go in the display, how it looks in hand, I think it's a pretty good Miles Morales. Now, I don't have the 2-pack version from years ago, right? I've just kind of been rocking the Gamerverse one for some time, and the Gamerverse one looks really nice. I like the overall aesthetic of that, but he is a little bit on the bigger side, so this, I feel like, is a good compromise, gives us a good smaller buck for Miles and for other teenage or younger characters in Marvel going down the line. Not that we need like a new Kid Nova anytime soon, but there are a lot of possibilities out there. So there's a lot to like about having an upgraded body in this size. The hips certainly stand out when you look dead on, but once you get it into poses and kind of play around with it, the hips don't bother me. They don't stand out that much. Let me rephrase that. Some people are going to just stand him up straight up in a vanilla pose, not do anything with it, and you won't love it in that sense. Those hips are going to stand out. They do not lie. So you want to pose this guy and get him into something dynamic to really highlight the spot on the shelf. That's the 2 cents, folks. It's a pretty decent figure. If you're looking forward to it, I do think you'll like it. If you're on the fence about it, then maybe you'll have some qualms, but probably not one I would wait on. Miles is a very popular character, so a lot of people are going to want this figure regardless of all of that other information. Appreciate you checking out the video. Of course, you can always find me on any of these socials down here. Most importantly, though, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe below. And until next time, take it easy.